The forest exhaled a breath of dusk, the air damp with moss and fading light. A chain clinked against rock, sharp and deliberate, followed by the hollow rasp of boots crushing leaves. The farmer's silhouette cut through the underbrush, shoulders hunched, face drawn into hard lines carved by years of bitterness. Behind him stumbled a Mustang, ribs showing through a dull hide, each step a struggle. The animal's flanks shivered with fever, its breath clouding in uneven bursts. The farmer yanked the chain without pause, muttering curses under his breath. They reached a clearing where the trees thinned and shadows stretched long. Without ceremony, the man wound the chain around a thick oak and pulled it tight. The metal bit into the Mustang's neck, drawing a faint line of blood. The horse tossed its head weakly, but lacked the strength to resist. Its eyes, dark and hollow, followed the farmer with a mute plea. He spat into the dirt. "Ain't worth hay nor water. Bears'll have you by morning." With that he turned, his boots fading into the silence of trees. For a moment, the clearing held only stillness. Then the horse sagged against the chain, sides heaving. Flies gathered at its wounds, the faint tang of iron rising from its skin. Somewhere far off, an owl called, its voice long and mournful. Elias moved through the forest with careful steps, a canvas sack slung over one shoulder. He had been heading home from the river trail when the prince caught his eye. Hooves pressed unnaturally deep, the drag of a chain etched beside them. Something about the trail unsettled him. He followed quietly, every sense sharpened by a life of watching more than speaking. The sight in the clearing stilled him where he stood. A horse, gaunt and bound, chained as though it were no more than refuse. Elias's throat tightened, old memories rising unbidden. His cavalry days, the night his mare had fallen under fire, her scream ringing through the smoke. He shook the thought away, but the ache lingered. He stepped forward, slow enough not to startle the creature. The Mustang lifted its head, ears twitching, muscles quivering under the skin. Its eyes locked on him, not with defiance but with something more fragile, something closer to surrender. Elias crouched low, his voice a quiet murmur. "Easy now. I'm not here to harm you." The Mustang shifted, testing the chain, a faint clatter echoing in the dusk. Elias reached out but stopped short, hands suspended in the air. He could feel the weight of the choice pressing on him. To leave was simpler, safer. To stay meant entangling himself in another's cruelty, another's burden. A sound drifted through the trees, a low growl, distant but distinct. Elias straightened, heart hammering. Bears roamed these woods, especially when hunger pulled them from their dens. The Mustang's ears pinned back, nostrils flaring in alarm. Elias clenched his jaw, gaze fixed on the trembling animal. He knew he had only moments before the forest decided for him. Elias moved closer, his boots sinking into the damp loam. The Mustang's eyes rolled white, its breath rasping like wind through reeds, yet it did not lunge or kick. Fear and exhaustion held it tethered more firmly than the chain itself. Elias spoke in the same low cadence he once used with frightened colts, words carrying rhythm rather than meaning. "Steady now, steady." The animal's ears flicked toward him, a tremor passing through its gaunt frame. The chain was looped and locked with crude efficiency. Elias tugged once, testing its strength, then drew his knife. Rust had fused the metal tight, and no blade could sever iron. His jaw tightened. There would be no quick rescue. He slid the knife instead beneath the rope halter, biting into the horse's muzzle. With a single pull, the fiber snapped, and the Mustang jerked its head back, freed of at least one torment. It let out a thin, weary snort, as if surprised by even this small mercy. A branch cracked somewhere behind the tree-line. Elias froze, listening. Another snap followed, deliberate and heavy. The forest seemed to inhale, every sound sharpening into menace. The horse shifted closer to him, trembling violently, sides brushing against his sleeve. He steadied it with one hand, the other tightening around the hilt of his knife. Memories stirred unbidden. The battlefield, smoke thick, his mare screaming as she collapsed under him. He had run, dragging her by the reins until her legs refused. The same helplessness swelled in him now, threatening to drown reason. He shoved it down. This moment was not about failure past. It was about choice present. The growl came again, deeper, closer. The bear was moving with the patience of a predator certain of its prey. Elias glanced at the Mustang. Its head drooped, sweat darkening its hide, but its eyes were fastened on him, unblinking. Trust flickered there, faint, unearned, yet undeniable. He felt the weight of it settle on his chest. "I've got you," he whispered, the words more oath than comfort. He shifted his body, so he stood squarely between the horse and the trees. The revolver at his hip was a cold weight, but drawing it meant revealing his presence. He let his hand hover near, ready. The underbrush rustled, a shadow swayed, massive shoulders brushing low branches aside. The bear's outline materialized in the gloom, its snout lifted, catching the scent of weakness. Elias steadied his breath. The horse pressed its head briefly against his arm, as if leaning on a post carved from flesh and bone. For a heartbeat, they were bound, not by chain, but by the same edge of survival. Elias raised his eyes to the darkening forest. The night was closing fast, and choices narrowed with it. Behind him, the Mustang shivered. Before him, the predator advanced. He could not turn away now. Moonlight spilled into the clearing, silvering the chain that bound the Mustang. Elias's hand slid to his revolver, the leather holster creaking as he drew it free. The bear lumbered forward, a hulking shadow with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Its breath gusted in heavy bursts, filling the air with the musk of hunger. The horse reared weakly, hooves scraping the soil, a sharp clang rising from the chain that anchored it. Elias stepped wider, shoulders squared, and lifted the weapon skyward. The shot shattered the night. Thunder rolled across the trees, scattering roosting birds into a frantic whirl. The bear halted, swinging its massive head toward the sound, nostrils flaring. For an instant, the forest held still. Then it growled low, a rumble that seemed to tremble in Elias's chest, and lunged forward. Elias fired again, this time into the ground at the beast's feet. Sparks leapt from stone, and the bear flinched, swiping at the dirt. The horse surged sideways, the sudden pull wrenching the chain taut until it groaned against the oak. Something gave, a rusted link, strained by years of weather, snapped loose with a metallic crack. The Mustang stumbled free, dragging a length of chain that rattled like a serpent at its heels. "Move!" Elias barked, his voice more command than plea. He grabbed the rope that still dangled from the horse's neck and pulled with all the strength his body could summon. The animal staggered, then lurched forward, hooves pounding unevenly but carrying them both away from the advancing shadow. Branches whipped Elias's face, tearing at his sleeves as they plunged through the undergrowth. Behind them, the bear roared, enraged by prey slipping from its grasp. Elias ran until his lungs burned, every muscle straining. The horse crashed beside him, dragging the chain, its sides heaving in ragged rhythm. They burst from the thicket into a narrow creek bed where the water glimmered faintly. Elias skidded to his knees, guiding the Mustang down beside him. The animal collapsed, trembling, its head hanging low. Silence returned slowly, broken only by the rush of water. Elias scanned the shadows, revolver still raised, but the bear did not follow. Perhaps the noise, the firelight of his lantern, or the stubborn will of prey had convinced it to retreat. Whatever the reason, they were spared for now. Elias turned to the horse, breath ragged. He tore strips from his shirt, binding the worst of the wounds where metal had bitten flesh. The Mustang shivered under his hands, but did not pull away. It lowered its head into the creek, drinking in small, halting gulps. Elias watched, the tension in his chest easing for the first time since he'd entered the clearing. Yet before relief could root itself, the faint sound of hooves drifted through the night air. Elias stiffened, revolver tightening in his grip. These were no wild steps. Men were approaching, drawn by the gunfire. Elias crouched low in the creek bed, every sense sharpened by the rhythm of hoofbeats drawing nearer. The Mustang lay beside him, chest heaving, its body trembling from exhaustion and pain. He rested a steadying hand on its damp hide, whispering without sound, as though words might break the fragile thread of calm holding them together. The glow of lanterns soon flickered through the trees, and voices followed, rough, careless, the tone of men who sought prize rather than mercy. 3 riders dismounted at the bank, their shadows long and crooked in the wavering light. One bent to study the churned mud. "Gunfire," he muttered. "Close." Another kicked at the earth, eyes scanning the brush. "Reckon someone's caught a wild one. Shame to let it slip." Their laughter was a hollow sound, sharp against the hush of night. Elias rose from the shadows, revolver leveled with iron certainty. "This one isn't yours." His voice carried no boast, only the weight of a man unwilling to bend. The men stilled, surprise flashing across their faces. Then one smirked, hand drifting toward the rope coiled at his belt. "That horse is wild. Can't belong to nobody." "It belongs to itself," Elias said, each word measured. "But tonight, it's under my care. You'll leave it be." The revolver gleamed in the moonlight, and though his hand did not shake, his heart thudded heavy in his chest. For a long moment the air held taut, balanced on the edge of violence. Recognition dawned in one man's eyes. He whispered to the others, and their smirks faltered. They had heard his name before, stories carried from his cavalry days, tales of a man who never missed when it mattered. Pride warred with fear, but survival won. One spat into the creek and muttered, "Ain't worth blood tonight." They mounted again, fading into the trees with curses trailing behind them. Elias lowered the revolver slowly, the echo of tension still vibrating in his muscles. He returned to the Mustang's side, kneeling in the damp earth. The animal lifted its head, eyes dulled by weariness, yet softened by something gentler, something close to trust. He brushed a hand along its neck. "You're safe now. We both are." Days turned into weeks. At his modest ranch, Elias tended the wounds with patience born of quiet devotion. The Mustang, once broken, skeletal, and near death, began to steady. Each morning it stood taller, ribs fading beneath new muscle, its coat regaining a sheen of life. Elias gave it a name, Ashen, for the night it rose from near death like fire from spent embers. Months later, as dawn painted the horizon, Elias saddled Ashen for the first time. The horse tossed its head, mane gleaming, eyes alight with untamed spirit. Together they broke across the valley, hooves striking sparks from stone. Elias felt the wind tear past, his chest swelling with a freedom he had thought long buried. What had been left to die in chains now thundered beneath him, a testament to survival. And no chain would ever bind it again.